Hey guys, we're going to be going back for another clear on Arboralis. This time I'm going to be doing a few requests that people have made. The biggest one is please do a clear that doesn't use Bulwark, but still goes for a high score. So we're going to be going for a perfect score without Bulwark, but only on 235%. As much as I'd love to show you a 265% clear without Bulwark, even if it's possible, it's probably too much headache for me to even try to figure out if it's even possible, which it probably isn't. Because Bulwark is just really, really strong. There's a reason every single high score team uses him. But we're going to be going without Bulwark as requested. We're going to be swapping to a Thunder team with Sage of Thunder Sakura. Also, a few more request I was giving is how to do a team that doesn't use something like double MoogleCharm because, lots of players don't have the second copy of MoogleCharm. We're not using Karten, who is, a fan favorite, also a fan hated unit or whatever, so no Karten for this clear either. We're going to be taking Maeve as a tank for this. A few reasons for this. For one thing, I'll just tell you straight up, the hardest nightmarishly challenging thing of dropping Bulwark, as it turns out, is not the damage you deal, it's the morale you gain. He provided so much morale that I overlooked, and when I took him off the team, I have been struggling to fill that morale. Not the gauge, I mean the score, to hit 30k morale gain. Because Sakura doesn't do anything for morale. She can do tricks like Chaos Grenade, which she's going to do, but she doesn't fill morale directly like Bulwark did. So we need to take Maeve for a few reasons. For one thing, she fills morale, which is great. She also lowers the resistance requirements of the party because she's a tank. I got, again, tons of comments saying, I don't have all these resistance STMRs. Well, we're going to be doing it with a tank, which means no one at all needs ice resist. You do still need light and water resist, but with Tiana, that's relatively easy because she does a big water resist buff. But all the ice damage is covered by a physical tank, so only Maeve needs any ice resist whatsoever. I'm not going to go too much more over the party because we're going to see the clear, and I'll go in detail into the party build at the end of the video, and you can use timestamps to skip around if you want to. So the big things that we're not using is Bulwark, we're not using double MoogleCharm, and we're not using Karten. And we're using a little bit less resistance gear. You do still need a lot of resistance gear for a high score run. Okay, so in the shift form, Maeve is geared for passive provoke. We're doing that with permanent sources. We've got one MoogleCharm, the Moogle Shield, and then Jesse's TMR. These are all permanent sources of passive provoke. But we need to go back to the base form where we're going to stay for the remainder of the fight, because that's her physical form. So we're going to use Practice Lore for the provoke, Hunting Call, and Run Wild for the stat buff. We're active provoking because we're not using passive provoke at all in the base form. Laura Croft is going to Calamity Border just about every turn for the morale gain. Tiana, in the base form, is going to Trouble Brewing. We're going to Rainbow Colored, Revitalizing, and then Yellow Concoction, because we're doing a Thunder team. Alright, turn 1, Sakura is going to do Chaos Grenade. I know Chaos Grenade is kind of an unpopular trick to use. A lot of players say it's hard to do. I agree. I mess it up pretty often myself. But it's such a huge morale gain, we just need to do it for that morale. If you're not using Kresnik, things like Chaos Grenade become really important if you're going for a max score. Now, Sky is going to shift on this turn and start stacking up. Sky normally would not want to shift on turn 1 because the boss has accuracy, but we've got a tank, so we don't care when we shift, any turn we want. Louise is now going to refill Sky's LB with Ionic, and then use a tactical for that morale gain. Now, as far as sealing the boss goes, we're doing that with Sakura and Louise. Sakura and Louise are both dual-wielding elemental weapons, and then Louise's Ionic is innately fire. That handles all 5 of the elements for us. Alright, so some attacks. Sky is wearing ice and water resist. I'm sorry, not ice. Water and light resist in the shift form, but not that much because we've got Tiana's Magnus. Alright, so on turn 2, we're going to shift Sakura to the shift form, and then she's going to continue doing Chaos Grenade, because, again, we need that morale. So Chaos Grenade, redirect, and the reason we shifted on turn 2 is because she's a trance shift, you can't shift on demand, so we need to get her cooldown started on turn 2, but we don't want to start her in the shift either. Now Louise is going to quad cast Ionic, and that's going to refill Sky, so we can get a second stack of Sky on turn 2. Lara Croft can just reload that Calamity. Maeve is going to triple. We're now going to Hunting, Run Wild, and Natural Protection. The reason we're doing Run Wild is for the stat buff. Boosting stats does boost morale. And then we're going to shift Tiana, and we're going to start stacking her Thunder skill, which is Unstable Lightning. Yeah, the boss is equally weak to wind or lightning, and because we're not using Bulwark, we could use things like Barch or something, or Coastal Frisia, but the reason I like Sakura instead of those options is because Sakura brings the Ramu field, which is a resistance down field, and if you saw my rank 1 clear with Mog, you know resistance down fields are a pretty big deal in this fight, and Sakura does 2 things in 1, and I like that. She also does Plant Killer. So turn 3, let's go ahead and do that Ramu field that I mentioned. In the shift form, you summon Ramu with Sakura. Now, keep in mind, Sakura does not have the Evoker passive that she can cross-summon Espers. You need Ramu directly junctioned to Sakura to make this work. Now, because Sakura was busy doing Ramu this turn, we're going to use Louise to take over Chaos Grenade duties for the party for a few turns. So Chaos Grenade, retarget the party, hit the party. Now, Louise is using a lot of elemental weapons because of the ceiling on turn 1, and the party is not completely immune. We took some damage, not that big a deal. We've got Revitalizing Brew from Tiana. It's going to heal back up. It's totally fine. Now, we did get poisoned as well. I should mention that because we didn't push morale quick enough. We got poisoned on Sky. Ignore it. The poison is irrelevant. On the other hand, the sleep this turn is not. We're going to go to the base form of Sky so we don't get slept, because her shift form is not using sleep resist. So we'll just Magnus and hit the boss a few times. Now, as far as the rest of the party goes, they can just reload and basically repeat their last turn. Yeah, now, you could do things like buff sleep immunity. For example, Sakura can even buff it just like Mog can. But because morale is so tight, I didn't want to waste anyone's actions doing things like buffing immunity. Not to mention, we're also too busy to refill Sky's LB with Louise for the next few turns. So by shifting back to the base form this turn, Sky's LB just passively refills thanks to her passive effect. So now we're going to go back to the shift form with Sky and get another stack of her LB. Before we do that, let's go ahead and reload Louise and do Chaos Grenade, because actually Sky's not using that much resistance in her shift form. There we go. And now we're going to shift Sky and get the other stack. Again, normally turn 4 is a bad turn to stack Sky. With a tank on the party, it's fine. Sakura on this turn is going to shifted LB. That's going to amplify the party for the next multiple turns. Let's go ahead and do the attack and magic buff, and then just reload the party. And these 3 can, again, repeat the same thing they did last turn. We're going to stack up. We're continuing to stack Tiana. We're doing Calamity every turn with Lara, and we're just doing some support stuff with Maeve that fills morale gauge. Notice how Sky lost health from the poison, and then Revitalizing Brew from turn 1 Tiana refills Sky back up. So even though you're actually hitting your party with these elemental weapons and dealing damage, you know, as long as you're not like OTKing anyone, you're fine. Okay, some more attacks. You know, accuracy this turn, but we're using a real tank, so it doesn't really matter. Alright, back to the base form with Sky, and we're going to do Zidane's STMR song. People did request to see a clear without Zidane's STMR. Unfortunately, that is a really, really big damage boost for Sky. So, you know, if you don't have it, you don't have it. You do what you can. But if you have it, hopefully at this point everyone has it, because Zidane was given as a free pick option a few weeks ago. As far as the rest of the party this turn, let's go ahead and reload Lara Croft. It's turn 5. We're going to do Sakura. she's going to imbue the party with True Thunderstone, and then we're going to double Thundagia. This is going to just hit the boss a few times for weakness damage. Let's go ahead and use Louise to retarget the party and do Chaos Grenade. Alright. Tiana is going... What does this see? Turn 5. Just double check my chart. Let's go ahead and Resounding Will. Let's go ahead and also do Refreshed Will for the MP fill. And then Tiana can repeat, and Maeve can repeat. Again, they're just mostly repeating these few turns. We're stacking Tiana. She's got a 25 stacking skill, which is miserable. I hate that they gave her 25 stacks, but we're fighting it. Now she's at 20 stacks. Okay, more attacks. Covered by our lovely tank Maeve. Okay, at this point, our Sakura is now going to take over Chaos Grenade duties again for a few turns. So Sakura, Chaos Grenade, retarget the party, break the party for that morale gain. Okay, let's go ahead and Resounding Will. Is the health regen ready yet? It's not ready yet. Alright, so Maeve on this turn, turn 6, needs to put up Provoke again. So practice Lore, don't misclick You're a Natural, that ruined a run earlier. Hunting Call, and Run Wild. Actually, we don't even need Run Wild right now. So we're just going to practice Lore, Hunting Call, and practice Swing. Lore, as always, Calamity Border. So this turn, we're going to go to the base form with Tiana, and we're going to refresh Trouble Brewing. Now, the reason I'm doing it in the base form, even though we're not finished stacking her lightning skill, is we need morale. Her base form has as a passive that autocast a flat morale per turn. Not to mention, I've geared the base form with a lot of autocasting stuff like batons and lilies. So just by going to the base form, we do feel slightly more morale. We're going to refresh Revitalize and Brew so we keep healing the party. And then Electric Concoction. Don't cast Nutritious Tonic. And the same thing with Louise. Don't cast Power Boost. These are break immunity buffs, and also don't cast Maeve's immunity buff. We do not want to make the party break immune, because we're going to be breaking our party with Chaos Grenade every single turn, all the way until the kill turn. So, keep that in mind. On this turn, we're going to be doing double Ionic, Diverse Arsenal, and Tactical Armor. Yeah, don't give your party break immunity, because morale is so tight on this clear, we need to break every turn forever. Except the very last turn of the fight. Okay. Some attacks, some sleep, doesn't matter, we're immune, blah blah blah. Okay, turn 7 is going to be the first turn we start dealing some real damage. The boss's mitigation is now down. It's time to start working on actually killing this guy. So let's go ahead and reload. First thing we're going to do, Chaos Grenade. Big deal, Chaos Grenade, got to be done every single turn. Chaos Grenade the party, there we go. Okay, the rest of the party is going to deal some damage this turn. So let's go ahead and first of all, let's Resurging Will. Again, healing the party counts for morale. As much as you can squeeze out all the morale possible, so do that. We're going to Resilient Will for stats. We're going to Resounding Will for stats. Now it's time to deal damage. Laura is going to shift. Her shift form is not wearing any resistance. We're going to deal with that with Absorption. Maeve is going to support chain with Practice Swing to chain with Laura. Louise is going to shift. Now Louise is using resistance gear. She gears forward easily. We're going to triple Disarming and then Neutralizing. And then Tiana is going to shift. We're going to times 5. We're going to use Forecast of Unstable, and don't forget Louise is also doing Forecast of Chaos Wave Awaken. The last cast is going to be Iridescent Invention on Laura. That's going to give her water absorption so that any cerulean flashes that happen don't kill her. So we'll go ahead and chain these up. This will deal something in the area of 40%, more or less, depending on variance. So let's go ahead and see how much damage we deal. Okay, a little bit less than usual, which is fine, not a problem. We're going to do the rest of it next turn. Now, if your gear is exceptional, if you got like a god tier variance roll on turn 7, you might even potentially push that threshold. If you do push it, it's okay. I know in my previous video for the rank 1 clear, I said it's bad to do. For this clear specifically, pushing the threshold on turn 7 or turn 8 is irrelevant, as long as it's pushed on one of those 2 turns. If you had pushed it, nothing would change. Keep following the guide exactly as I'm going, as if nothing has happened. Just keep following the guide. We didn't push it, still not a problem. So anyway, Maeve is now going to triple. We're going to morale fill. We're going to stat buff. And we're going to natural protection. We're going to go back to the base form with Laura, and we're going to do Calamity Border. Alright, Sakura is going to Chaos Grenade. We need all the Chaos Grenades in the game. So Chaos Grenade, redirect, give me that morale. There we go. Alright, once that finishes, use the attack and magic buff. Now we're going to push the rest of that threshold. Laura is now shifted to the base form. She's wearing resistance in the base form. She's now safe, so we're going to push the rest of the way. So Louise is just going to times 4 cast Disarming. And then Tiana is going to times 5. We're going to unstable 4 times, and then use Fantastic Formula. So go ahead and chain these 2 units. And that'll deal somewhere around 16 to 18% damage. So the boss is at 62, we're going to very comfortably overpush the damage needed. There we go. Okay, so the Fantastic Formula, you might be wondering why'd you do that. It's just because I had to cast something. You don't want to times 5 cast with a times 4 caster. Your chains will break. That'd be bad news. So we used the 5th cast on a non-offensive skill, even though we didn't actually need it and it didn't even do anything. It doesn't really matter. Anyway, here's the threshold. A lot of Cerulean Flashes. Laura's back in the base form. We're all immune. Not a problem. Turn 9. Time to get ready for the burst turn. Or not. Whoa, I'm lying to you. Time to get ready for the burst turn next round. Okay, so this turn we need Sakura to shift and start helping us get ready. So we're going to Sage's Rage for Plant Killer, True Thunderstone for the Imbue, and then use Thundasia to hit the boss so that we do things like break the mitigation, etc. Let's go ahead and do attack and magic buff. Let's also do the Resolute Will Barrier. Maeve is going to Chaos Grenade this turn. Maeve is currently not dual wielding, she's single wielding. Because of that, we need to directly target the party, which is fine. We do need to break multiple targets for that morale gain. Like I said, we're doing Chaos Grenade every turn. This turn, it's Maeve's turn. Now, Maeve is not using elemental weapons like Louise and Sakura were, so she's going to deal a little bit more damage than usual. She's not a DPS, it's not a problem. That's why we use the barrier from the morale skill to make sure no one dies. She did almost 7k to Sky, it wouldn't have killed her anyway, but the barrier is just that extra layer of safety. Now at this point, well, first of all, we're going to shift Tiana to the base form and use the base form's LB. You might be wondering why I'm doing the base form LB instead of the shift form LB, because the shift form LB gives her more killers, while the base form LB gives morale. I can tell you from experience, morale is a problem on this clear. We need all the morale possible. By shifting Tiana to the base form, we're going to, for one thing, get 500 morale from the base form LB. Also, as before, the base form is wearing lots of autocast gear for more morale. As far as Louise go, back to the base form. At this point, look at Lara Croft. If Lara Croft LB is full or close to full, and you know you'll get the rest of the way from auto limit, you're fine. Lara does need her LB next turn. If it's like 3/4 of the way full, and you're worried about maybe it might not fill all the way next turn, you can use Louise to Ionic a few times, but Louise has to do Power Boost and Magnus this turn. So no matter what, Louise needs to do Magnus and Power Boost. Power Boost is going to cure those breaks that we've applied for the remainder of the fight, because next turn is the big burst turn, and we need those breaks out of here. Now, my Laura got RNG lucky on crystal drops. Her LB is filled. We don't need Ionic, so I'm going to use Tactical and Diverse Arsenal on this turn for more fill. Now, if your Laura's LB was critically low, it was just like super low, then you would have to use her to fill her own LB with triple cast Hotshot. But our LB is good, so we're going to use Calamity Border. Before we do that, we're going to go ahead and again use a morale skill to fill MP. So Calamity Border just for more morale. So there we go. Okay, so next is going to be the burst turn. Wait for all the boss's attacks to finish. And the auto-casting to finish. Also, notice Tiana is auto-casting even more stuff for morale. Again, we need every speck of that. Okay, so before we do anything, we need our last buff. Sakura is going to do her shifted LB to do the 45% amplify that has worn off from the time we did it earlier in the fight. We're also going to do the morale, defense, and spirit, and the morale, attack, and magic buff. Now we're good to go. Zidane's ST Marspong is done. Sky has all her stacks. Tiana is at 25 stacks. We've got all the buffs. We're good. So we're going to shift LB Sky. We're going to support... don't shift. No, in the base form. Always in the base form chain. Maeve. We're going to triple practice swing. Lara Croft is going to shift and volatile ammunition. Tiana back to the shift form. This time we're going to go all in for chaining, so all 5 of the cast. So we're going to times 5 unstable lightning. Now 4 of those casts are going to be perfectly matched with our Louise. So let's go ahead and 3 times disarming and then neutralizing. Now the last of the 5 casts from Tiana are going to be floating. We're going to use Lara and Maeve to overlap that, and then Sky is going to cap as well. As I've mentioned before, when you're using Sky and Lara, you want Lara clicked a split second before Sky. That way Sky gets the 90% defense break benefit. So as far as chaining goes, Louise and Tiana first, wait a little bit, then send Lara and Maeve to make sure that Tiana's unpartnered 5th cast gets capped by our Bolting Strike. If you did it correctly, it should be a 127 point chain. Hopefully, we damage cap. It's, you know, variance, all that. I love variance, so here we go. Thankfully, the chain is usually a lot easier with this party than it is with the 5 times Bolting Strike party. Alright, we chained it properly. Variance, come on, give it to me. 2.578. Yeah, we overcapped by 78 million. There you go. So now the question of morale. Did we hit the 30,000 morale score? That has been a way bigger problem with this team than the damage. And boom, perfect score, 235%. Outstanding. The changes I made worked. So just to FYI, some of the changes I made, the big change I made from this clear was I skipped Tiana's personal killer buff and used her base form LB, which is geared for a lot of autocasting. And then on turn 6, I skipped Tiana's stacking and went to the base form again for the autocasting. Here's the damage breakdown. As usual, this is not super accurate. Sky's damage is accurate. So Sky got 765, which is actually an exceptionally high roll. That's really high. Sky does not usually roll that high. Lara, on the other hand, rolled kind of low. Lara rolled... yeah, Sky definitely carried that one. That is one of the highest rolls I've seen on Sky. Holy wow. That is really good. Really good. Lara usually gets about 1.6, 1.7. So Lara actually underperformed. Sky overperformed. Tiana and Louise don't really have variance. They're pretty steady in their damage dealt. And then, yeah. So there was the clear. Let's go ahead and show the gear that I still haven't gotten more than one pearl. It's so irritating. Anyway, so that was a perfect 235 without Bulwark, without double MoogleCharm, etc. Morale was the trickiest part of that. And again, this is not budget. You're going to see the gear, a lot of STMRs. A perfect score on 235 is still pretty hard to do, especially when you're doing handicaps like no Karten, no Bulwark, etc. Anyway, here's the party. So real quick before I show the party, some overall, just everyone needs type stuff. Everyone needs, in any form that's ever active, they need a combined 100 and... Oh, math is going to kill me here. We did a 75 water and a 40 light. I did this math earlier. Oh my god. Okay, 75 water plus 40 light resist minus 150 double mod. Times 2. I'm done. Okay, well, we're going to show the team. I'm totally mind blanking on the exact amount of resistance we need. Oh, never mind. Duh, it needs to be... No, it doesn't. Shoot. Oh my god. Are you kidding me? I can't think. Anyway, okay. So we're gonna move along. I cannot think of the exact number you need for this party. Sakura is geared the same in both forms. She needs Riku's pouch and dual wield because she's doing Chaos Grenade almost every single turn. We're using a water, wind, and earth weapon. You might not have Lion Saber. If so, you can stick more weapons on Louise. We'll show her in a minute. It's not required. It's better morale if you can fit more elements on Sakura. That way Louise can use a conductor's baton for morale. Here's the gear we used. Ingenuity. Status immunity. You want everyone immune to sleep if they're exposed on turns 3, 6, or 9, which means sleep immunity for the party. If I remember correctly, now I remember. Okay, so you need, after a buff, 175 water and light resist, meaning from gear you only need 100 water and 135 light resist in either form. So yeah, we're using a 75 water resist buff and a 40 light. So we need 135 light and 100 water on everyone. You don't need any ice resist. A lot of these units are going to have a lot of ice resist because of like multi-resist gear. You don't need that. No one takes ice damage. Anyway, here is her setup, and the shift form is geared identical. No change, I think. Yeah, any spare slots you have, fill with things like Galvana Lilies, Conductor's Batons, Upgrade Package, Philosopher's Stones. All these auto-casting stuff will boost your morale. Louise is using a Thunder weapon, and she gets fire from Ionic. I'm using Conductor's Baton for more morale. If you don't have Lion Saber, then, for example, give Louise like an Earth weapon, and then use a single Wind weapon on Sakura. Something like that. Anyway, she needs Riku's pouch as well. She's our secondary Chaos Grenade unit. Status immunity, resistance, 135 or better light, 100 or better water, 0 ice, totally fine. There we go. And because she does shift, we need that in the shift form as well. So the shift form has 100 or better water, 135 or better light. We're never shifted on turns 3, 6, or 9, so she does not need sleep resist in the shift form. Gun build, damage versus plants and aquatic. There's her build. She's maxed on all killers. Tiana, in the base form, lots of auto casting. Double lilies, double baton, her TMR or STMR. The resistance is needed, and that's her build. Relatively easy to build, to be completely honest here. Shift form, again, we need 100 or better water, 135 or better light. We don't need any ice. There's the build. Use a throwing weapon so that she gets her killers. Chain cap up, etc. Laura Croft base form, conductor's batons. She has 100 or better water, 135 or better light. There it is, and Calamity Border. She Calamity Borders almost every single turn. Also, you want her, if possible, in the base form, lots of auto limit, because on turn 7 she uses her full LB gauge to DPS. On turns 8 and 9, we don't want to waste anyone's turn refilling her LB gauge, so as much auto limit as you can fit. I'm getting that 5 of that from her card, and then 3 each from Exceptional Ingenuity. That's giving her 11 auto limit. If you can't fit it, if you don't have these STMRs, like I said, you can use her to fill her own LB gauge on turn 9. It'll just be a decent amount less morale. It may still be enough though. Now shift form, she is the only unit on the party that can completely ignore all resistances, because the only turn she ever shifts is turn 7, where she gets Tiana's absorption, and turn 10, where the fight's over anyway. So pure DPS in the shift form. There it is. I think she's got 125 and 225 killer. Maeve in the base form, after a buff, she wants 375 to ice, water, and light. We're always using Calamity Border, that's 40 to ice and light, and we're always using 75 permanent resist from Tiana to water. There's the resistances. There you go. And I gave her a Riku's Pouch. The only time she ever uses Riku's Pouch is turn 9. She could instead use her Morale Fill skill. It's like a 1% difference. If you don't have a third Riku's Pouch, or you can't fit the resistance gear with that slot taken up, you don't have to use it on her. On turn 9, you could use her to use just her natural Morale Fill skills instead. It'd be almost identical, but Riku's Pouch is like a 1% more morale if you can fit it. You also want her TMR or STMR. That way, on turn 1, when she shifts from the shift form to the base form, she auto-cast her cover, which saves her an action on turn 1. And then here's the build we're using. Hers is quite, resist heavy. Shift form is using passive provoke. We start in the shift form for the ambush. So MoogleCharm, Moogle Plushie, Danger gets the blood pumping, and make sure she has 175 or better to ice, water, and light. That way the ambush doesn't deal her any damage. Other than that, auto buff like Miracle Shoes, etc. Sky in the base form is using her TMR or STMR. 100 water, 135 light. Any spare slots, like things like Galbana Lilies. Here's the build we're using. And then here we go. Shift form is damage. Now, her shift form needs a combined total of 160 water and light. Yeah, because she only shifts on the first 4 turns, and during those turns, we've got the bigger Tiana Magnus of 150% resist buffs. So there we go. And she's not immune to sleep or anything. That's why on turn 3, we go back to the base form that is using resistance to elements. So here's the build, gun build. There you go, and she's got 280 LB, 175 Aqua, and Plant. So that was the clear. Perfect score on 235%. Didn't use Bulwark, didn't use Karten, didn't use double MoogleCharm. It's still heavy on the resist gear, but not as heavy because we don't need any ice resist. It's a little bit easier to build. Anyway, there it is. Hope it helps. You have 2 days left. Go out there and get a good score. Later.